Zen Buddhism by the numbers, number 6, the Paramitas, virya, energy, exertion. Hekigan Roku, case 32. Jojoza stands still. Engo's introduction. Once the delusive way of thinking is cut off, 1,000 eyes are suddenly opened. One word blocking the stream of thought, and all Nen actions are controlled. Is there anyone who would undergo the experience of dying the same death and living the same life as the Buddha? Truth is manifest everywhere. If you do not see it, here is an ancient example. See the following. Main subject. Jojoza asked Rinzai, what is the essence of Buddhism? Rinzai, getting up from his seat, seized him, slapped him, and pushed him away. Jojoza stood still. A monk standing by said, Jojoza, why don't you bow? When Jojoza bowed, he suddenly became enlightened. Secho's verse. Inheriting the spirit of Dansai, how could he be gentle and quiet? Not difficult for Kyorei to lift his hands and split Mount Kasan, letting the yellow river through. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Back for more fun. So when I was selecting the topic for the Teisho, I didn't realize that this would be the memorial commemoration of Edo Roshi. I am one of the ever-dwindling number of people active in the Zendo who knew Edo Roshi and who was taught by Edo Roshi. He was my ordination teacher, and I spent several years with him at Daibosatsu Zendo. And it's coincidental but very fitting that this should be the koan for today and the paramita for today, because whatever one could say about Edo Roshi, and there are all kinds of things that one could say and all kinds of emotions that can be aroused, I know of no one who was a better exemplar of the paramita of energy. He was truly dynamic human being. The place where we're sitting right now, New York Zendo, and the mountain monastery, Daibosatsu Zendo, are a direct testament to his dynamism and his energy and his dedication to Dharma activity. So although I'm not intending to speak very much about Edo Roshi today, a great deal of what I know about this paramita the paramita of energy. Energy dedicated to the Dharma. Exertion dedicated to enlightening all beings. I owe to Edo Roshi in ways both direct and indirect. So energy. Energy is a great mystery. Scientifically speaking, a great mystery. What we know about energy is much less than what we don't know about energy. And I don't say that facetiously. It was only a little over 100 years ago that Einstein discovered the relationship between mass and energy, which is the basis for modern physics. And it was much more recently that scientists deduced that most of the energy in the universe is so-called dark energy. Something like 68% of the stuff that makes up the universe is dark energy. And about 14% of what makes up the universe is dark matter. And it's called dark because we don't really know what it is or how it works. We don't know how to detect it. We only infer it from the fact that the universe is expanding at an accelerated pace. And that in order for that to happen, there must be all kinds of energy and mass that is not accounted for by the stars and planets and gases in the universe. And so we infer that there's something called dark energy. So if that's the majority of energy and we barely know anything about it, it's only an inference, really we know very little about energy. How it might be detected, how it might be used, no clue. And we're still learning all kinds of ways about how energy can be stored, how energy can be tapped. All of the energy that we have on Earth, in one way or another, is solar energy. Even nuclear energy is solar energy in the sense that the elements that were formed that are used to create the atomic reaction were formed in suns, in stars, and came to this planet from elsewhere. And all of the energy that powers our civilization, the trains and cars and planes, ships, all of that is in one form or another solar energy, whether it's directly taken from converting the light of the sun into energy through special chemical reactions, or harvested from fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are simply dead plants. Plants that have been dead for so long that they've turned into some other kind of substance and some other kind of energy. But essentially, that's the energy of photosynthesis that we're tapping into. And as for biological energy, we're still largely ignorant. It's not even 100 years since the chemical reactions that power the cell were discovered. How cellular energy functions, or how neurological signals are triggered, how cells communicate with one another, what is the energy behind that, how the neurons in our brain and in our nervous system communicate with each other. It's all mediated by energy. And until very recently, we had no clue how that worked. So we're really in the very early innings of discovering how energy works in the world, in our bodies, in our mind, in our spirit. In the Eastern traditions, there is a long history of looking at how energy is balanced between the mind, the spirit, the heart, the body, the science of yoga, of qigong, of meditation. They're all basically ways of manipulating energy and tapping into the reserves of energy that we have. What's the role that spirit plays in all of this? What's the role that harmony within our body plays in all of this? Just as I love to do little polls. Does anybody here sit in full lotus posture? Has anybody here ever sat in full lotus posture? Yeah. Really painful. That's why I don't do it anymore. I don't have the suppleness that I had when I was a 22-year-old starting off with this stuff. But anyone who has sat in full lotus has experienced a kind of energetic harmony that you just don't get in any other posture. It's just a fact. You may not be able to do it because of pain, because of stiffness, because of lack of flexibility, but it is the most balanced and harmonic posture imaginable. It simply places your backside and your hara and your spine in exactly the right condition for doing meditation. And I think a large part of the science of yoga was just about how to meditate better, how to prepare your body to meditate better, and specifically how to do full lotus posture without feeling like your legs are going to fall off. And there's a reason why in Japanese monasteries, I don't know if they do this anymore, but certainly in Edo Roshi's day, they insisted that the monks sit in full lotus posture. It was not optional. You just had to do it. Edo Roshi sat in full lotus posture until very late in life when he broke his leg and could no longer sit in full lotus posture. And I know that was, I think, more traumatic for him than breaking his leg was not being able to sit in full lotus, because it was such a loss. It's such a wonderful, dynamic posture. It allows the energy to flow in a way that no other posture does. So this is one kind of energy. And energy, you can think of other forms of energy that we deal with in our practice. One of them is the energy of pain. You know, pain is a very powerful energy. And it can be an energy that drives you nuts. It can be an energy that paralyzes you. or it can be an energy that opens your heart and opens your mind in ways that nothing else does. Chanting is a form of energy practice. When we chant, and we chant in a kind of dead way, Namu Karatana, all we're doing is draining our energy. But when we chant with full enthusiasm and wholehearted strength, even if it sounds bad, it has an effect on your heart and your mind and your body and your spirit. It's a very powerful energy practice. So, of course, we like to try to harmonize, but much more important than harmonizing is just chanting with your whole heart. And doing whatever you're doing with your whole heart. Now, virya energy is specifically meant as the energy which is dedicated to practice, to helping all beings, to opening your own heart, your own mind, knocking off all of the blinders that we have, all of the illusions that we have, that energy. And the way that we tap into that energy, of course, sitting in proper posture, doing whatever physical practice you're capable of doing that promotes harmony in the body, whether that's yoga or qigong or tai chi or dancing, running, many kinds of ways of promoting that. Doing that to promote the harmony in your body, the harmony between your mind and your spirit, your mind and your body. But probably the most important way of boosting your energy is by having a firm commitment, a firm vow. If you don't know why you're sitting here, you're not going to get very much out of it. You know, and people have all kinds of different reasons for doing meditation. Some people do it because they've heard it lowers their blood pressure. Some people do it because they're a little anxious and they think it's going to make them calm and more centered. And those are valid reasons. I'm not going to say anything bad about them. But the Bodhisattva vow is very different. Bodhisattvas don't care about their blood pressure. And they don't care about anxiety. Anxiety is just another kind of energy. And it's another teacher, another thing you can learn from. Bodhisattvas care about opening the heart and mind of all beings. And they can only begin to do that by starting with themselves. It's not a selfish practice, but you have to start somewhere, and you start by purifying your own heart and mind, clarifying your intention, knowing what you're about. And if the Bodhisattva vow, the 4 great vows for all, is a little too wordy for you, you can make up your own vow. I vow to see clearly. I vow to be present for all suffering beings. I vow to put an end to all this nonsense. Any way you want to phrase it. You know, Bodhisattva vows work for me, but maybe you need something simpler and more direct. That's fine. But what this idea of vow does is that it knocks off all of the vacillation, all of the and when you're confused and wondering, you know, am I getting anywhere? Well, there's nowhere to get to, so if you're not getting anywhere, that's okay. But when you're wondering, you know, and you're thinking this and that and blah, 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 just having that clarity. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it to get past all of the nonsense. And once I've gotten past all of the nonsense, everybody's going to be happier. It really is true. Everybody will be happier. Everyone who comes in contact with you will somehow be happier for having come in contact with somebody who's not dealing with nonsense anymore. So there are really 2 aspects to energy in practice. One is the willingness to keep going. And here it really overlaps with the paramita of patience, because perseverance is the bridge between patience and energy. The willingness to go the distance, to not give up. That's why we set such a lofty goal when we do the Bodhisattva's vows. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to save them all. You know, you're shooting for the stars. You're not shooting for, well, I'll help out my neighbor. Nothing wrong with helping out your neighbor. It's a good thing to do. But you're setting your sights on something much grander. And by having that lofty goal, when things get tough, you don't give up. So that's one part of practice. There's a story from, there's a series of stories called the Jataka stories, which are supposed to be stories about the Buddha, that have accumulated over the course of centuries in India and elsewhere, of all of the reincarnations of the Buddha. And there's a story which comes from the Jataka, but there are a lot of different variations. It's such a good story that it's been taken up by a lot of different people and organizations and authors. The story is about a reincarnation of the Buddha when Buddha was born as a little bird. And there are a lot of variations. In one, it's a parrot. In another one, it's a hummingbird. In another one, it's an owl. I like the hummingbird personally. Hummingbirds are great. Really love hummingbirds. And the hummingbird sees the forest that it lives in is on fire. And the hummingbird loves that forest. And feels really sorry for all the animals and birds and trees that are facing extinction because of this fire. And the hummingbird frets for a moment and says, "What can I do?" And thinks, well, maybe I can put out the fire. So she flies up high and sees a river, and then flies over to the river and takes up a little bit of water in its beak. And then flies back to the forest and releases 3 or 4 drops of water. It's not working very well. The fire just keeps on burning. The hummingbird flies back to the river, takes another few drops, releases another few drops on the fire. Meanwhile, up in heaven, the devas are all laughing at the hummingbird. They just can't believe that this silly little creature is endangering itself to try to do something entirely hopeless. They know there's not a chance in the world this hummingbird could put out this fire. But one of the devas, instead of laughing, thinks, that's one incredible bird. And he turns himself into a golden eagle. And flies over the forest. And he tries to convince the hummingbird, it's hopeless, just save yourself. But the hummingbird says, doesn't matter. I'm going to do what I can. And the ego is so moved that it starts to cry. And being a god, it doesn't cry like somebody mortal cries. It cries whole rivers. The forest fire goes out. And this is the kind of dedication that virya involves. The willingness to keep going, even if it seems hopeless. To sacrifice yourself if need be. In order to save your fellow beings. So that's one side of virya. Tireless exertion. Exertion even when it seems hopeless. All in the service of saving all beings. The other side of virya is depicted very nicely in this koan from the Hekigan-roku. Jojoza stands still. Once the delusive way of thinking is cut off, 1,000 eyes are suddenly opened. One word blocking the stream of thought and all net actions are controlled. Is there anyone who would undergo the experience of dying the same death and living the same life as the Buddha? Well, that's what we're all attempting right here. So the story is Jojoza. Jo was the monk's name. Joza is an honorific, meaning senior monk. So we're not talking about some novice who just wandered in and is asking a question. This is somebody who's been at the monastery for a long, long time and still hasn't gotten it. So maybe Jojoza is like the little hummingbird doing something hopeless. 20 years and still hasn't gotten it. Jojoza asked Rinzai, what is the essence of Buddhism? Essentially the same question as the koan from yesterday. What is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West? What is the essence of Buddhism? Rinzai, getting up from his seat, seized him, slapped him, and pushed him away. Jojoza stood still. A monk standing by said, Jojoza, why don't you bow? And when Jojoza bowed, he suddenly became enlightened. So this is another side of energy. Rinzai here serves the role of the golden bird, the golden eagle, who puts out the forest fire, extinguishes Jojoza's delusions for him, extinguishes all of the suffering that Jojoza has been dealing with. And the story is to our way of thinking, a very, really strange story that somebody would ask a question and the master gets up, grabs him, slaps him, pushes him away. That's not very common in American Zen. And I'm not saying it's good or bad that it's not common, but it's not common. What Rinzai is demonstrating here is Zen spirit. And it's only possible because, number one, of his absolute commitment, his absolute vow. But just as importantly, the absolute commitment of Jojosa. That's why when it happens, Jojosa doesn't go, "What the heck? What are you doing?" Jojosa has, number one, complete dedication to this project of awakening. Complete commitment. Even if it costs me my life. Like that hummingbird. And Rinzai knows Jojosa. That's the other part of the story, which is really important to remember. This is somebody who has been there for a long time. Rinzai knows this person and knows what this person needs. And it's not a pat on the back or a wordy explanation. Well, the essence of Buddhism. Well, there's the Four Noble Truths and there's the Eightfold Noble Path. You know, he's heard all of this stuff before. He knows of all of this stuff, but he's still suffering. He still doesn't get it. What he needs is like a computer, you know, when your computer freezes and you turn it off to get it to start up again and it'll be good as new. Well, that's what Rinzai is doing. He's turning off Jojosa's computer. No more words. No more thinking. And Rinzai does this with just full commitment. He's not even thinking about it. He's just fully into this action. And that's Zen Ki. That's the spirit that we're aiming at when we chant with all of our heart. Or we do anything with all of our heart. When you're cleaning, when you're washing the floors and running up and down the floors with that cloth, and you're doing it with all of your heart. You know, you could do it and grumble about it. My back hurts. This is uncomfortable. Or you can put yourself completely into it. I'm too old to do it now, but if you put yourself completely into it, it's a different experience. It's liberating. Whatever you put yourself completely into, it's liberating. Dogen talked about Zen Ki as the opposite of Shoji. Zen Ki, he used particular characters for Zen Ki. And Zen comes from, of course, Zen meditation, jhana, but he used Zen in a different way, meaning total or absolute or whole. That was the character that he used for Zen in Zen Ki. And Ki being the vital force or organic energy, same as Qi in Chinese. But he used it not in the sense of the force inside the body, but of activity, whatever activity. So if you wash the floor with Zen ki, you're pouring your whole heart, your body, your mind into this action. Zen ki, in the sense that Dogen uses it, is translated as total dynamic functioning. Total dynamic functioning. Not holding anything back. The word that Ada Roshi liked to use was combustion. Combustion. Whatever you're doing, combust yourself. Really burn it. Just burn away all the traces. And Dogen compared Zen ki with Shoboji, which means life, death, or duality, or samsara. In Zen ki, there's no duality. In Shoboji, there's nothing but duality. You can think of Zen ki as nothing but. You're sitting and it's nothing but sitting. You're washing the floors, it's nothing but washing the floors. You're chanting, it's nothing but chanting. When you do it wholeheartedly, when you combust yourself in the doing, no traces. That's Zen ki. When there's a yes, but, that's Shoboji. That's holding back, just always holding back a little bit. A little hesitancy, a little lack of commitment. Not quite putting your whole heart into it. Rinzai, when he grabbed Jojoza and slapped him and pushed him away, was putting his whole heart into it. And Jojoza is just, he can't even think anymore. He's just so completely collapsed. His whole idea about reality, his whole way of being, just completely collapsed. And then the monk standing next to him snaps him out of it, says, Jojoza, why don't you bow? Jojoza. And when he bows, there's no Jojoza anymore. There's no thinking. There's no holding back. There's just bowing. And suddenly, after 20 years, he gets it. No body, no mind, no seeing, no hearing, just this, just this. So this is the paramita of energy, the perfection of energy, exertion. It only works if you pour your whole heart into it. Now I'll close with a poem, since I've been talking about Dogen. Give me 1 second. I'm getting quite thirsty. I wasn't familiar with Dogen as a poet until I did this online course of Zen poetics and discovered that aside from being a great Zen master and having written the Shobogenzo, which is one of the greatest texts in Zen, which Roshi did a wonderful translation of, he was also a great poet. One of the greatest poets, and certainly one of the greatest Zen poets. And this poem in particular is a really beautiful poetic expression of Zen Ki, of wholeheartedness. It's called Viewing Peach Blossoms and Realizing the Way. And this translation is my translation based on a number of translations that I've read, but it's sufficiently different from all the other ones that I can claim it as my own. Viewing peach blossoms and realizing the way. Peach blossoms come undone in the spring breeze. Doubts do not grow leaves and branches. That's the whole poem. Peach blossoms. So form a mental image of peach blossoms on a spring day, and the breeze. First, one blossom comes off, one petal gone with the wind, and another petal gone with the wind. And blossom after blossom giving itself up to the wind. No holding back. Coming undone in the spring breeze. Doubts do not grow leaves and branches. Wholeheartedness grows. Wholeheartedness, giving yourself up. That is the way.